Morant with a running start. It dunks! Oh my goodness! Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn. His heat is gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance. Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! Ja Morant, insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies lost their fifth straight game, stalling out on offense down the stretch once again to fall to the San Antonio Spurs. To discuss the game and the overall situations of the Grizzlies right now, I have collaborated with Chris Herrington of the Daily Memphian. Today's episode is a combination of our two shows. It's going to be posted on both of our podcast feeds. The only place you can watch it, though, is on the Grits and Grinds YouTube feed. So this episode is going to be hosted by Chris Herrington of the Daily Memphian. Thanks as always for watching, and thanks especially to those of you who support my work at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right, now this is Chris Herrington and me discussing the Grizzlies.
I'm columnist Chris Herrington, and we're without beat writer Drew Hill this week. The Grizzlies have lost 9 of 10, and Drew has decided he's had enough. He is out of here. Okay, so that's not true. Drew and his wife welcomed a new baby girl into the world last week. Shout out to Harper Hill. And he truly does have more important things to be doing right now than talking about this mess of a basketball team. But here at the Daily Memphian Grizzlies Pod, we subscribe to the next man up mentality, of course. And so we have put in a call to our podcast pal across the state, not across the state, middle of the state, Keith Parrish of both the Grizzlies Pacific Grit and Grinds Pod and the general NBA Fast Break Breakfast. What's up, Keith?
Hey, Chris, which fill-in level am I? Am I like a emergency Javon Small? Am I a Charles Bassey? Am I the Charles Bassey of this show?
I think, you may have more staying power than that. You may be a Ryan Hollins, and we may keep calling you back.
Oh, am I the booty? Man, if I could be the Daily Memphian booty call, I'd be very excited. Thank you.
There we go. A little Grizzlies history joke there. Shout out to Tony Allen, not his drugs. TA. So anyway, our Memphis Grizzlies, your Memphis Grizzlies, if you're listening, 4-11, losers of 5 in a row. Will not only have no point guards, no ostensible true point guards on the roster, now won't have one for at least 2 more weeks with the Ja Morant news. I want to go back and look at the last 2 games they played. Saturday against Cleveland, and then last night as we're recording Wednesday late morning. Tuesday night they lost in San Antonio. A couple of similar games. Grizzlies have single-digit leads in the fourth quarter, can't score, lose the game. The other team has the best guard, and the best guard wins, especially if the team is better anyway, and they're at home. That seems like that happens a lot of time with these Grizzlies games. It's you look up and they have De'Aaron Fox and you don't, and they have Donovan Mitchell and you don't, and they have Jalen Brunson and you don't, and they have Shea Gilgeous-Alexander and you don't.
Chris, how dare you leave Harrison Barnes off that list? They have
Barnes.
Harrison Barnes and you don't.
So let's start with that. There's a couple of specific things I want to ask you about from the Spurs game, then we can open it up and see what other impressions you had on that. That was a rough fourth quarter for Jaren Jackson Jr. That's one of the first things that jumps out. Jaren goes in the fourth quarter. The Grizzlies have a lead into the fourth, only 1-point lead, but a 3-point lead at some point later on in the quarter. And Jaren goes 1 of 6. 0 of 6. The one was against Cleveland in the fourth. He went 0 of 6. With the turnover in the fourth quarter. He and Zach Edey combine for, I believe, 0 of 9 with 3 turnovers in the fourth. And not only is Jaren not carrying the team's offense when they really need him to in that situation, he's guarding Harrison Barnes and he's getting scored on.
It was very unpleasant a few ways for Grizzlies fans. On the NBC broadcast, when it's a 1-point game, Reggie Miller's like, this is where they fell apart against the Cavaliers last game. Let's see what happens. And then they fell apart again. And then Reggie's comparing Harrison Barnes to Magic Johnson going down the stretch where Harrison Barnes just destroys Jaren over and over and over. I do think Jaren's one turnover, that was a missed call. Sohan trips him. I like to see
the kick. Right.
Yeah, that's like, they never make that a no call on Luka Doncic. But besides that, Jaren had a lot of really makeable shots, had a wide open 3-pointer with the team down 1 with 2 minutes left before Harrison Barnes went on his little tear. Yeah, Jaren, when the team absolutely needed him these past couple of games in crunch time, couldn't deliver. I'm sympathetic to Jaren in the sense that the other teams are keying in completely on him. He is not a gifted passer. He's not supposed to be like an alpha true number 1 with no other supporting cast. So like, I am sympathetic, but also the looks he got in this fourth quarter were not horrible. He just kind of blew them all, choked a little bit. I also wondered if the ankle injury, where it looked like he sprained his ankle in the first half, maybe that was slowing him down somewhat. He didn't say anything post-game. Post-game, he just like, I was terrible. I didn't play well enough. He might've used some profanity. Just Jaren not being able to come through and help get the Grizzlies over the hump at crunch time.
So I did wonder about the ankle thing. He twisted it and just played right through it. Vince Williams did the same thing, by the way, in the Cleveland game. And it feels like those guys understand the situation the team is in and are just powering through some of those situations. There's also the issue of the defense knows that they need him to score. I feel like even at Jaren's best offensively, and we've seen that the last couple years for stretches, he's put up some big numbers in like the flow of games. I don't know if he's ever been in any consistent way, even at his best. This is a tight game, give me the ball. I'm going to carry the offense down the stretch of a tight game. I don't think even at his best, he's ever really been that.
I think he does have some moments that he's done it. I personally expected more from Jaren in these situations, even if I do give him the excuses of the roster and such. Like the players the Spurs had on the court, like I feel like Jaren, even if he's double teamed, should be able to knife through them and get to the rim. They have no rim protection at all. He tried to, I don't know, he's like posting up smaller guys. He's getting wide open looks. So I do expect Jaren to do a little bit more than he's done. But of course, the margin of error is just so slim with the Grizzlies right now, where if one thing goes wrong, you're not pulling these games out, and you have this 14-point fourth quarter, a game after having a 16-point fourth quarter. In the 5-game losing streak, I was looking this up, I think they have like a negative 40 net rating. They have a 75 offensive rating in these fourth quarters. But also, Chris, this goes back to, I would say, as longtime NBA fans, this is the hallmark of bad teams. You hang around until the fourth quarter, then that's when it matters. And then it's like, oh, so-and-so couldn't hold the lead. You're like, well, yeah, the better team won. And you don't want to think that the Spurs, this shorthanded, were the better team. But I think they were playing at home, despite the fact that Grizzlies had won 11 straight in San Antonio. Yeah, this is just these patterns right now of this Grizzlies losing streak. You're usually playing much better opponents. I think the Spurs were more on par, but this is just the pattern of teams that aren't very good. Even when they play well, then in the fourth quarter, a lot of times they just give it up to the better team.
Were you watching the Cleveland game live?
Yes.
That moment in the first quarter, what was your reaction to the first quarter of that game?
It was, so I went back and rewatched first quarter live. I picked up, I think, midway through the second with my live viewing.
Okay. So you already knew sort of what had happened. We didn't know the end result, but to me, it was a real deja vu situation of, like, in some smaller ways, it was reminiscent of Game 3 against Oklahoma City. It's right.
Yeah.
Like things have been going poorly to start the season, just as things have gone poorly to start that playoff series. And then things suddenly click. In this case, it's like you finally see the lineup you've been wanting to see.
Yeah.
Ja Morant, Jalen Wells, Cedric Coward, Jaren Jackson, Zach Edey. It's on the road. It's against a good team. It looks good. It looks exactly like you want it to look like. And much like in the playoffs, at the very highest crest of like things are looking better, it just collapses. And you didn't know, in this case, when Ja Morant had the calf injury, that he wasn't going to come back in that game or what it was going to be. But to me, it's a deja vu feeling for a Grizzlies fan of we finally got what we were looking for, and it's immediately taken away.
It also feels like not just deja vu to the playoff game. It's been multiple years of that sensation. Like, just wait until Jaren comes back. Just wait until Desmond Bane comes back. Just wait till Ja's back in the lineup. And then, we finally got our best 5-man unit together in the first game of the playoffs. Yeah, I guess the first time they saw it all year. So it does feel like we've been dealing with this for years. I do say we haven't really mentioned it so far. In both of these games, there have been huge positives. And I think when you remove yourself from the I wish we were a better team framing of everything, like when you remove yourself from the, hey, we're not a contender, we're probably not making it out of the first round of the playoffs, I hope we make the play-in, there are positives, and a lot of that is just Zach Edey returning and the fact that the team looks right with Zach and Jaren playing together, with them playing alongside Cedric Coward. The defense is vastly improved. These were two good defensive performances. It's just the offense that has not lived up.
The second half against San Antonio, and the defense was not good. And I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One of those maybe some Edey fatigue. One of those is another thing I sort of want to talk about. But the Edey thing, that is the most notable good thing that's happened, is the return of Zach Edey these two games. And I agree with you that you can see the difference immediately. And that difference didn't hold up over the course of 48 minutes against San Antonio, against a matchup where you really needed it to. But you can see the palpable difference in the defense, in just the way it made things fit. And it's sort of a bummer, the fact that you lost, not only did you lose Morant the second you get back Edey, right? You're used to losing players as you get players back, but that specific combination of a gain and a loss, because there's been a lot of talk of Edey will help out Ja, but it goes the other way too. Like in the Spurs game, Edey's this big target and people keep trying to get him the ball, but he doesn't really have guards to get him the ball.
Yeah, and you can just look at the offensive numbers just with the lack of Ja. How I think this is since Ja went out, 3 straight second halves where you're not even hitting 50 points. And we now have 3 straight games. It's like 100 points, 95 points, 101 points. These numbers we never saw anything like it last year. It was the highest scoring team in the NBA. So yeah, it's just, you lose Ja, and also Javon Small is not available. And of course, we're still waiting for Ty Jerome, hopefully coming back in maybe in a week, 5 days. I don't know.
Oh no, he's not. No,
he's not close.
I thought they're due for an update.
That's all we are. Okay.
I'm not sure if he'll be back before Christmas. Like maybe he will, but I don't assume that at all. They never said what grade it was. They called it a high grade. I think it was like a grade 3 calf strain. So I don't think he's going to be back soon. I mean, it'd be great if I were wrong about that.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, they forced Vince Williams and Cam Spencer into these lead guard roles. What's your impression of the way those guys have looked?
I mean, bless their hearts. Like
they're
doing as good as they can. I mean, Vince tied his career high with 9 assists, almost got a triple double. It's just they're hanging in there enough, but just the lack of the creation. It's just, I don't know.
I think Vince has been good relative to what you can reasonably expect. He's had some bad turnovers late in games. He had a bad one in the Cleveland game in particular. But I feel in terms of sort of what's gone well, it's not mattering to wins and losses right now because of the team situation. But Vince Williams was someone a lot of fans were ready to cut to keep Charles Bassey, before Charles Bassey had ever played. Right. They have him under contract this year and next, and he's basically back. I mean, if you look, the things I was looking at with Vince Williams, there was so much talk about the 3-point percentage, right? And his 3-point shooting is sort of closer to the good shooting of 2 years ago than the bad shooting last year, but somewhere in between. I don't think he's ever going to be a high-level 3-point shooter. I just don't think that is there. But what I was always looking at with him were, what happened to the rebound rate? Where's the steal rate? Where's these activity markers? Where's the guy who's just active all the time and gets deflections, gets tap outs, gets involved in stuff? And I feel like he's back, and he's back in a way that I think has some meaning long term, because I didn't know if it was going to happen, right? I think you may have just lost a guy who you had on a good contract who could be a top 6-7 player for you, and I think maybe that guy is back. He's not in the right position with your team, but he might be back.
Yeah, I've been very encouraged. And obviously, you and I were both huge fans of him from a couple of seasons ago, thinking he might be like a missing piece on the wing for the Grizzlies. Not just obviously the shooting is going to level off where it's going to level off, and it's probably lower 30s. I had one of my TVs on the NBC, I don't know what it's called, performance broadcast, where they have all these stats overlaid. And so anytime Vince is dribbling outside of the 3-point line, it's like 30%, 31%, like telling you what the expected field goal percentage is. And obviously he had to put up a couple of threes in that fourth quarter. But even though he's not a good 3-point shooter, you can see how
he's viable,
but it's also just the threat of shooting makes the defense react to him. And he picked up several of his assists because his defender closes out to him. He pump fakes, I'm going to shoot it. And the whole time Vince knows I'm getting the defense to react so I can give it to Cedric Coward, who's awesome. And Cedric Coward's going to get another wide open 3-point look. Cedric Coward making 5 3-pointers, maybe the star of the game for the Grizzlies with the double-double, 19 points, 11 rebounds. A lot of that's Vince just being aware I'm going to be able to feed him. So yeah, I think Vince has been very encouraging, and it is a bright spot. Also, and like Cam Spencer, like that guy can play. And so when the team gets more whole, those are positives.
Let's talk about Cam Spencer.
Okay.
I want to know on Coward, the rebounding is becoming very consistent with him.
Yeah.
That is even with Edey out there to gobble up rebounds. I mean, the idea of I think the small forward thing is locked up for like the next 10 years, hopefully, knock on wood.
Yeah.
Unless, he ends up moving to the 2 if his ball handling improves and you have some bigger player. But he looks all the way there. The Spencer thing, I've been real back and forth on Spencer. I've had a lot of skepticism about him, and then he keeps proving me wrong. I thought Tuesday night in San Antonio was an agonizing Cam Spencer game.
Okay.
Because in the first half, he was really good offensively in the first half of that game, and they needed it. He's the best shooter on the floor. They don't have really guards who can do a lot. I think Vince Williams is playing near the top of his game as a ball handler, playmaker, and has a hard ceiling on it. And it felt like they needed Spencer to let it fly, let it rip the second he found daylight at all times, and he was doing it. And he was making shots and not just catch and shoot threes. One of the things I've noted, and I was going to write about it this week, and I ran out of space because I had other stuff, was he started to get more confident inside the arc. And you can see the growth, the trajectory upwards over these 15 games. If you look at the first, 6 or 7, and then the ones after that, the rate of shots he's made inside the 3-point line have gone up a lot. The rates of assists he's made by penetrating, he's not getting to the rim, he's not getting to the paint, he's not going to do that. But that, just get into the mid-range, pull up, play a pick and roll, make a shot. And I thought in the first half, it seemed like you just have to have this guy out there. And in the second half, San Antonio said, all right, you're going to have this guy out there?
Yeah.
We're gonna, the defensive rating with Cam Spencer on the floor in the second half was like 150. I don't think that's accidental. I think the Spurs deliberately said, we are going after this guy every possession. And we got, De'Aaron Fox and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell and these guys, and this guy can't defend these kind of guys. And I think it's a real problem. I don't know where it goes with Cam Spencer because there are some very strong strengths and some very thorny weaknesses, I think, there.
Right. I thought the positives of him being aggressive, getting into that mid-range, and just putting shots up made it more okay that the fact they were picking on him. But also this maybe speaks to the team strategy and the rotation strategy. We as a team were basically using platoon style. The starters only played with the starters. The bench only played with the bench. So you have this lineup. They're picking on Cam Spencer, but also out there, if you have Jock Landale and Santi and KCP's husk of whatever he is out there still. And then, John Konchar's out there sometimes. It's not as, I don't know. I'm less concerned maybe if he's allowed to play alongside some of the better players. But again, for me, it's like he's a 10th guy, and I think he's proven he's a 10th guy. But right now, he's like our 7th, 8th guy. Now he's the only one doing anything.
No. He's proven he belongs. I just wonder about does the offensive strengths, defensive weaknesses, and how that balances out, and how selective you have to be about having him on the floor. They can't be very selective right now. They don't really have the option. You mentioned the rotations, and that's something I wanted to ask you about broadly, not necessarily that specifically, but sort of that leads into an area. But first, let's pause for a word from our sponsors. So you mentioned the rotation patterns. That has been a cause of consternation from the jump. I feel like I was very early in pointing some of this stuff out. There's the meme of like the guy like walking and then someone comes behind him jogging and runs past him. I feel like that's me with the fan base in terms of wondering about some of Isalo's decision making in terms of rotations and lineups. There was a couple things jumped out from Tuesday night's game. One is that in the middle of the fourth quarter, they had, I think, a 3-point lead, 2-point lead, something like that. And he put out a lineup of the entire 5-man bench unit.
Yeah.
Which was Spencer, Conchar, Aldama, Landale, and whoever the fifth, KCP. And the Spurs went on a 7-0 run with the 5 bench guys on the floor in the middle of the fourth quarter of a tight game, right? To me, that's something you can get mad about. Of course, they still have the lead again with the team you wanted on the floor, and they gave up an 11-0 run. Another thing that happened, and I noted stuff like this like very, very early in the season. I noted it with Ja. I noted it with Santi Aldama in a situation. Cedric Coward in the third quarter went on a personal 8-0 run and came out like in the middle of that. He literally made 3 shots in a row, 8-0 run, and they took him out for the sub. They didn't alter the normal sub pattern and took him out. And I'm not crazy about like taking a guy out when he's hot like that.
Right.
At the same time, he was on this is not Isalo decision. Organizationally, he was on a minutes restriction because of the foot soreness. And so if you give him a longer run, then now you're limiting the minutes you're going to give him down the stretch of a tight game. So I think they lost the game. So people are going to get mad about everything, right? Where are you, not only on those decisions specifically, but where are you generally on Isalo? How down are you on Isalo?
How down am I on Isalo?
Nobody's up on Isalo right now.
No one's up on Isalo. He hasn't won basketball games as a Grizzlies head coach.
Right. He hasn't given people anything to grab hold of.
The team was terrible last year after he took over. I had a lot of jokes to myself and on Grits and Grinds, like where Zach Kleiman's like, based on how the team performed when he took over last year. And it's like, what do you mean? They were bad. They were bad. I mean, he inherited a tough situation. I'll grant you that. It might have been the same outcome if they hadn't made a coaching change, but they were bad last year and they're bad right now. I'm not ready to include preseason and summer league games, but like it's in my brain where I'm like, well, they weren't good in any of those situations either. So that part makes it hard, even when you include the context of the injury situations and the roster situation. They have not beaten a team with the winning record at home since he became head coach. They're 0-10 by my count.
Yeah, they didn't do much. They didn't do much of that last season before he became head coach.
They didn't.
But you're right.
But you can throw out the Thunder series. We would have won that one game if Ja Morant hadn't been injured. That's 0-8 in the regular season against teams that have a winning record at home. And like at some point, when your team's scrapping and you're shorthanded, you get one, right? You're like, oh, that was a fun game. These guys really overachieved and played hard. I don't even think we have an overachieved game. I don't think like the Grizzlies right now, I don't gamble much, but they're horrible against the spread, which is also like, they're not overachieving in any element. And so we're like, okay, well then do we blame Ja Morant for sort of quitting, which I think is legit. He stinks. Ja Morant has not been himself when playing. Is that Isalo's fault? Or
I'll say this. I made this point on the radio, and like, it's not all like someone to blame because no one's trying to get hurt, right? Yeah. But the reality is this team is 4-11. They are 4-5 in games in which Ja Morant has played a full game in both body and mind. Because you look at the games he's missed now with the calf thing, the game he left early, the game he missed with the ankle. You look at the game he was suspended. These are all losses. You look at the game where he did quit in the second half of that Lakers game, and that was a game they were up 14 points, and he just quit on the game. I think they probably would have won that game, maybe. Luka was awesome, but still. And then I count the first game back where he played the full game, the first game back against Detroit after the suspension, but he was very unhappy. That's the one where, where he accused me of asking him a home run bait question or whatever.
Right.
So I don't count that as the game where he was fully there in body and mind. I'll give him the rest, right? But that's 4 and 5 when they've actually had that guy on the floor, like trying to play. And that means 0 and 6 when they haven't. And part of the issue is that like the unreliability is a multi-season unreliability. But it ties into the Iisalo thing in that, I got off track a little bit. One thing I was going to say, you talked about they have not overachieved, and I agree.
Yeah. At
the same time, when I watch these two games, the Cleveland game, the San Antonio game, well, there's a lot of people who I think don't watch every second of Grizzlies games, national people who say, they're quitting on the coach. That is not what those two games look like. Those two games do not look like a team that's quit on the coach. It looks like a team, they are not maybe being coached up to their best ability, even with the people they have out. And maybe they're getting a little too discouraged when bad things happen late. But it doesn't look like a team that's packed it in. It looks like a team that's trying and losing, and that's on everybody.
Right. I think you're right. I think they are trying. And I think a lot of the positives from the last two games, we're seeing the Zach Edey impact, even if he struggled in the fourth quarter and should have scored easily on a couple of post moves, but committed offensive fouls, but whatever. Like Edey out there with Coward and Vince and Jaren, like that 5-man unit is solid. And if you got another all-star to go with that unit, Ja Morant, things are going to be obviously better. Speaking back to the Vince Williams Jr. thing, that's another reason I was looking at the stat. Like, it's very small sample size, 2 games with Zach Edey, but they are dominant rebounding. They had so many, they were ahead in this game and they nearly won the Spurs game because of the offensive rebounding. They got something like 16 more shots than the Spurs did, 21 offensive rebounds, but like they're getting over 80%.
Here's the funny thing about that game.
Yeah.
I don't have the numbers right in front of me, but I remember this roughly. I think they beat the Spurs on second chance points, something like 22-4 or whatever. Yeah. They outscored them in the paint by 2 points.
Yeah.
They were missing lots of stuff,
Yeah. There definitely was I missed this shot and tapped it to myself 3 times padding of those offensive rebounding numbers. But still, I think when you have Vince at your 1 and Cedric at your 3 and Zach Edey at your 5, you're going to get some great rebounds. So that part's been good. I mean, but then I don't know. Now I'm swimming in all the things we've been talking about.
I started asking you about Iisalo. My thing is still that I've been saying the whole time. I'm not telling you he's a good coach. I don't know. I don't know if this guy's a good coach. I have a hard time passing judgment fully to this point because I just think he's been dealt such bad circumstances. And it just seemed like the idea of what he wanted to do was so predicated on having multiple good on-ball guys built around Zach Edey screening, right? Like that's been the idea. You got Zach Edey and you got they had Ja Morant and Scottie Pippen and they went out and added Ty Jerome and Javon Small anyway, right? Like I think they wanted to run some of those kind of lineups. And not only have they not had a single second of like multiple ball handlers with Edey on the floor, they've had 4.5 minutes even of even one of those 4 guys with Zach Edey on the floor.
Going back to the situation where Cedric Coward had an 8-0 run and the Spurs called timeout.
Yeah.
My first thought was just wondering, like, does Iisalo just not believe in the hot hand theory? The idea of like, oh, he's not more likely to keep scoring. But then it is hard to figure out because there was that minutes limitation of 25 minutes for both Edey and Coward. And if you go back and look at a table of the substitution patterns for this game, it is so regimented where it's basically like they wrote this down before the game started, who was going to play when. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I do understand they've said
I think they do that, but I think if you go through all the games this season, you will see lots of circumstances where they deviate from that in the second half of games.
Yeah, I think they have said some guys are playing better, like Javon Small, you can't play anymore. That's happened. This was one game where I think the entire game did go to script. As far as continuing to evaluate him, I was trying to look up the stat. I can't find it right now. I'm pretty sure I saw earlier this week that the Grizzlies are one of the worst teams on inbounds plays this year. I'm pretty sure they've been bad at challenging calls.
Yes. No, I noted that in a column.
What are the things that Iisalo is doing well? is he's building some kind of foundation for the future of
that's the idea, but it's
and that
hard
like
to,
that is the results aren't there quite yet. So that's a little stressful.
Another part of this, I think a lot of fans who are down on Iisalo have underrated the degree to which the league is trending in the direction he's trying to trend, in terms of not playing the heavy minutes, in terms of quicker subs, in terms of the pace and the intensity. The Pacers and the Thunder both played sort of like that last season, right? And got to the NBA Finals. But one thing I wonder about, if the idea is that creates an advantage, what happens when everyone's doing that? How does it create any kind of advantage? This is why I'm more of a players guy than a coach guy in the NBA, where I think the difference in what a coach does is sort of marginal relative to the quality of the talent he has at his disposal. I don't think JB Bickerstaff has become a dramatically better coach. I think he's got a dramatically better team than he had in Memphis.
Yeah, Cedric Coward. Cade Cunningham, another CC. Cade Cunningham and Jalen Duren are now amazing. So
right.
that team is really good. No, I'm with you. Where the idea of we're going to come up with this idea to moneyball the minutes distribution, and that's going to give us this extra edge. It's no, you have to have talent. You have to have the best players, and I'm down.
I do think the league. Steve Kerr had a comment to this point about the minutes and the pace, and I do think the league is trending in the direction he's in. But partly because of that, I don't know if it really is going to create any value there. So I don't know if that's the thing you're doing to create value. I don't think that's the thing that's going to actually create value.
Yeah. So, Chris, the Grizzlies wrap up this 10 games. We highlighted this before the 10 games started. I was like, these next 10 games are really hard, guys.
Yeah.
And I was like, let's go. I think we could go 3-7. 3-7. That seems reasonable. But they went 1-9.
Yeah.
But at least the stretch is over. We survived.
So when will the Grizzlies win again? Here's the upcoming stretch. It's Sacramento at Dallas.
We're wearing those new jerseys against Sacramento. It's going to be awesome.
You think Thursday night they win home against Sacramento? I mean, they might actually be favored in that game. They were not favored. They're going
to be favored.
They were underdog by 6 or 7 points against the Spurs, and they did not cover or whatever. But they were still supposed to lose that game. You think they win? Think they win on Thursday?
Yes, they win the game on Thursday.
I do too. I think they win. I especially think they'll win because I won't be there, and that's what happens. I have not written a game story. Drew does most of the game stories, but now since he's been out, I've done a couple more, and I did some early in the season. I'm 0 on game stories, by the way, this season. I have not written a winning game story.
They're gonna They're gonna beat the Kings. They're gonna beat the Mavericks in Dallas.
Uh-oh.
I'm calling a win streak.
Captain Optimistic over here.
They're gonna get humiliated because they're playing a team at home that has a winning record against the Nuggets on Monday. Iisalo still will be searching for that first victory at home over a team with a winning record. Yeah, then you play the Pelicans, you play the Clippers, the Kings. Those teams all stink.
Wemby might still be out. Castle might still be out by the time you go back to San Antonio again. I mean, that's sort of on the edge, I think, of what.
I am reasonably optimistic with the way that the players are trending, that they're going to eventually get some wins. But of course, when I say reasonably optimistic, it's just because I downgraded my expectations maybe months before other people did. So I think people were more torn up about the start to the year, where I was like, I don't see if this team's going to do well. And we have concerns about Ja Morant. And the concerns about Ja have come into fruition.
Well, let's circle back to that as we start to wrap up, because once the Jerome, and I had some thought that maybe things click and you can get to 6 and be above the play line, but when the Jerome and Pippen injuries happened, that was done for me. And what I said when those injuries happened, I said this before the regular season started. I said the reasonable goal for this team is to be in the play-in. You're not going to be better than a play-in team. To be in the play-in, but to be in the play-in as a team that has gotten better over the course of the season and that arrives in the play-in better than your record indicates. And as bad as this has all been, nothing just changed that. They're 2 games out of the play-in with 68 or whatever games to go. The weird thing about this season is that I don't know if it's changed my priors very much about what I think this team could be. I mean, Coward's better sooner than I thought. Vince has bounced back better than I thought. I don't feel any different about Edey. I don't feel any different about Jock Landale, who I didn't think would be good anyway. I don't. It didn't.
I've been slightly let down. I thought Jock Landale would be 28% better.
Okay.
I was more optimistic. No, that's funny, Chris. So, like, when I think of my big picture dismay with where the Grizzlies are as a franchise, part of it is like they nailed the Cedric Coward draft pick and the Jalen Wells draft pick, and Zach Edey's been like solid. They've nailed those most important draft picks over the past 2 years, and they stink. And that's a hard, like, I don't know.
Well, this was in my notes. I skipped over it, but since you brought him up, let me give you a couple stat lines. 10 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 37% from the floor, 28% from 3.
I would kill if Kentavious Caldwell-Pope could hit those numbers. That's Jalen, right?
That's Jalen Wells this season.
Yeah.
Here's another stat line. 9 points, 4 boards, 2 assists, 37% from the floor, 30% from 3. What's that?
Wait, that feels too high for KCP. That's
Jalen Wells after the All-Star break last season.
Oh, I like that.
Are we sure that like first half rookie season Jalen Wells was real? Because it hasn't been real.
Hang on, I got my. Are we sure Jalen Wells is good? Bell somewhere behind me. I can't remember. I feel like I was hitting that. I was pulling that out. No, here's the Kentavious Caldwell-Pope question, Chris. He'll be out of the rotation in a
How
many of the picks
if they get healthy?
How many of the picks in the Desmond Bane trade were to salary dump Kentavious Caldwell-Pope?
Only one. That contract's not that bad.
You think he's opted into next year, Chris?
I do, unless he's traded. But yeah, and so I don't.
If you wanted my part of my okay, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope could be useful. You could use that huge salary to trade for something.
Right.
You can't, because you have to pay to get off that salary and then also pay something to upgrade that salary.
I think next summer it'll be it'll be a pure neutral contract salary match for potential deals, if they even use it that way, is what I would say there.
Do you have any comment? Sorry, I'm taking over. Do you have any comment on Dillon Brooks as Zach Kleiman's comments? I loved it.
I was going to write about that, and then by the time I was writing, it was 5 days later, and Edey had come back, and Ja had gotten injured, and it seemed like this is some TMZ thing from a week ago that mostly people on Twitter cared about, and it's time to move on. So I did have stuff. I mean, my thing with that is, did Zach Kleiman specifically tell him specifically to only shoot 6 times? Maybe. My guess is that it's an embellishment of a conversation that was had with him about his shot selection. I'm sure there was a conversation with him about not being as quick on the trigger, and there was a struggle for multiple seasons with Dillon of getting him to accept a place in the pecking order that was commensurate with his ability relative to the other players on the team. I wrote about that many times. I think that thing went wrong in a lot of ways, but it wasn't just the organization that was sort of frustrated with him. Like, all the fans were frustrated with him. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just the on-court stuff. Like, I don't know about that conversation with him about the shooting. I did hear that there was some kind of conversation with him. I don't know who, whether it was with one of the coaches or front office or who the person was. But there was some kind of conversation with him that was basically like, can we cool it? This is after the the first Ja suspension and all of this. It was like, let's cool it. Let's stop talking. Let's just go out and play and prove it on the floor. And we don't need distractions. We've had too many. And he went out and did the LeBron James poke the bear thing anyway. And then he played poorly, and then he ducked out on media. And I think people were really mad about that. They felt like he sort of went into business for himself. And I think that thing went wrong in all kinds of ways.
Yeah. So if you missed the quote, Dillon just saying, he was asked about his confidence level and if he'd ever lost his confidence. And he said the only time he'd lost his confidence was against the Lakers on the Grizzlies, because the GM had told him to just shoot 6 shots. I was curious if it was like, if there were,
he averaged like 13 shots a game in that series.
No, I know. And obviously he was terrible in that series from shooting the basketball. But I was curious, did he mean like 6 kinds of shots? Like only take like corner threes, wide open threes, layups, shot clock mid-rangers if the shot clock's running down. But he said he regained his confidence playing for Team Canada, where Dillon Brooks whipped Team USA, and then he's been playing on the Suns, and he's killing it on the Suns. The Suns are doing great. Right now, the Grizzlies pick is in the lottery, and the Magic are playing well, and the Suns are playing well. So that draft pick watch is not much fun right now.
So the Suns thing is something to watch because they went through a really easy stretch of schedule, but they won all of them. Good for them. And then the schedule started to tighten up a little bit, and they've gone 1-1 these last 2 games. They lost against Atlanta. They won in Portland. I think those are more mid-grade kind of games. And now it's going to start getting tough, and we'll see where they're at. They're definitely playing good basketball. Do you care about the Marcus Smart things that you brought up, the Dillon Brooks?
Oh, and then Marcus Smart. What were his comments talking about how he felt a little bit betrayed that they said the rumor was, and I heard this rumor, I don't know how it got through the grapevine, that Marcus Smart didn't want to be in Memphis. And
that's something, and maybe that was a thing people were saying because it was something people were saying.
Yeah.
I heard that from all kinds of people, not just people in the Grizzlies organization. That was like conventional wisdom. That was like people are like, oh, this guy, he left his heart in Boston, or this guy, he's not in shape and he just seems like he doesn't want to be here.
It's the Game of Thrones whisperer guy. The guy who's just spreading the rumors, putting the news out there. Is like Marcus Smart doesn't want to be in Memphis.
Here's the reality, though. I mean, we get so distracted by like the little dramas. The reality was he was having trouble staying healthy. He was not playing well, at least on offense when he played. He was playing pretty well on defense, actually. Not playing well on offense. And they looked up and they said, okay, this is not going well. He's on the books for $21 million next season. We might need to do a renegotiation with Jaren. They didn't know. There was a little bit of retroactive explanation there. They didn't know they were going to have to do that because it looked like Jaren might make All-NBA, but it was at least a possibility. It's like we might need to do a renegotiate extend with Jaren. Even if we don't do that, we want to re-sign Santi Aldama. We want to get, use our mid-level, whatever exception we can get. They basically looked at the opportunity cost. Is it more valuable for us to have Marcus Smart or to try to get rid of this contract? And they just decided to get rid of the contract. I mean, obviously the whole thing, it was a bad trade. It's a trade that went awry, but I don't see the need to like make it like some blame thing. The Grizzlies ended up being a bad trade, and then they paid more to get out of it, and that just happens, There's more moral drama if you're involved in it, I guess.
What do you think about the Ja Morant conversation nationally, where Zach Lowe's saying that other GMs think maybe he's just kind of not trying, and he will try if he gets moved because he wants to get moved. Of course, Ja on Instagram has posted all the stuff about like Memphis is home. I asked a week ago if he was doing the Vince Carter. Is he doing the stop trying to get traded and then he's going to show back up again?
I mean, obviously I'm not in his head. I'm not a confidant of his. This has been made clear, but I actually trust I would trust the moody emo Ja Instagrams more than I would trust the conventional wisdom chatter around the league.
Yeah.
Do I think he's had issues with some things internally? I do. Do I think that's just about coaching? I don't. I think it's very notable that that he was eligible for a contract extension last summer and he did not get one. And I would not dismiss that as the root of like feelings. But I don't think this is him like, obviously he's hurt right now, but even when he wasn't, I don't think this was him, his play. I don't think this was him artificially altering his play because he's some Machiavellian, I'm trying to get traded. I think this is Ja Morant moodiness. I think it's a combination of emotion and physical ability with some of the injury stuff. And I think that stuff got to him. And I think it's much more about Ja personally and the pressures he's feeling and what his body is capable of or not in the moment. I think it's too conventional to say like, this player is trying to maneuver to get this done. I just don't think there's anything strategic going on with him. I think it's just pure personal expression, like, or personal ability or whatever, for lack of a better way to phrase it. I would write it better if I wrote it, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I hear you. I don't expect him to suddenly.
What do you think?
I don't think the 21-22 Ja Morant is in there. I
think that's part of the problem.
Right.
I think struggling with that not being there is part of the issue.
I mean,
for the team,
as far as what Ja Morant wants, If he would try harder, if he was in a different situation, I don't know. That's where I'm. It's a mystery to me. I don't think he's trying very hard this year. I don't care about like his high potential assists. It's because he's just swinging the ball around. Like
this takes me back to the thing I wanted to end on anyway. So let's wrap it up here.
Yeah,
we talked a minute ago about what the realistic competitive goals for the team were once you got to the season with the injuries you had, and how that those goals are there if you still want them in terms of getting better over the course of the season, being a play-in team, etc. We also talked about that first quarter in Cleveland, right? Where you line up on the floor and you lose it. You get it and you lose it in 6 minutes. And to me, whatever the competitive potential for the season is, the main thing this season has always been about, from the second they traded Desmond Bane and decided not to trade Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson, and in fact, give Jaren an extension and not give Ja an extension. Like, this is the big framework of everything. You trade Desmond Bane, you extend Jaren, you don't extend Ja. These are the big picture things. Now you're going into the season with a new head coach. What this season is ultimately about is getting five people together, if you can, for an extended period of time and deciding what, if anything, you're going to do with them beyond this season. Those people are Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., Cedric Coward now, Zach Edey, and Tuomas Iisalo. You need those four players playing together for that head coach for like at least, can we get 3 or 4 weeks? And then make a decision about, are you carrying those 5 people forward? And if you're not, how are you breaking it up? That's what the season's about, ultimately. For all the drama about, are you in the playoff race? Are you in the play-in, et cetera, they have to get those 5 people together and make a decision about them. If they go through the whole season, they just can't get them together for a stretch of time. You got to make a decision without doing that. To me, that's what the season is about.
Are those 5 people more likely than not to all be with the Grizzlies in March?
I think Cedric Coward and Zach Edey 100% will be.
Okay,
the other three
sure.
are open. You don't think so? Coward and Edey. I mean, those are good.
No, I think I'm saying if we're setting the betting odds, like minus 200, that they're so like 2/3 likely that they'll all still be here. I mean, Iisalo most likely to be gone by March, but then the other question is,
I don't think that's true.
Oh, who's more likely to be gone, Ja or Jaren? Wait, you think it's more likely Ja Morant? Just if we're putting the probabilities out there.
I don't do gambling language, so you may have confused me.
Okay,
were you were pitting Iisalo against other people, not just on his own? I thought you were saying there's a greater than 50% chance he's gone by March. That's what I was saying.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if anyone's going to be gone, it's more likely Iisalo than Ja Morant.
Well, I think those are the two names.
Yeah.
I don't know if I think that's true.
Okay.
I think there's a good chance you get to the summer with all 5, but then you have to make a decision next summer. I think that is the most likely scenario. If you're trying to force me to put one person at the top of that most likely to go list, I'm just not going to answer. But because I don't know. But I think those are the 2 people you're talking about.
Yeah, I think
I don't think there's a hunger right now to do it. I think they want to get it all together and see what it looks like, and they haven't had the opportunity.
I mean, I think you're right. If those 5 are all available, like we saw that promise in the first few minutes against the Cavaliers, that is, I think, a lower tier playoff team. But my enthusiasm has been, if that's this roster when healthy, I was like, it's like a 44 win team. Yeah.
Well, the question they have to ask themselves is, what is that next season and the season after? And that's what they have to ask themselves, right?
If Cedric Coward does a month by month, oh my goodness, this guy is averaging 19 and 8 and he's still shooting close to 50% from the field. Well, then great. You got to hopefully a future all-star in your hands.
But these are the questions we're going to be asking ourselves all season. If you're committed to caring about the Memphis Grizzlies, these are the questions you're going to be caring about for the foreseeable future. Keith and I both agreed they're going to win. The losing streak will be broken Thursday night in Memphis against the Sacramento Kings. It's great stuff. I want to thank everyone for listening. Keith, thanks for filling in for Drew, who's actually I think still, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this. He may be very close to you right now.
Oh,
Drew Hill. So, anyway, Keith, where can people find your stuff?
Yeah, just subscribe to Grits and Grinds wherever you get your podcasts. Do it over on YouTube. Help me out over there. Also, listen to Fast Break Breakfast. It's a lot of fun. All right, thanks everybody for watching this combined episode of the Daily Memphian Grizzlies podcast and Grits and Grinds. Remember, if you want more from me and you want to join my listener Slack channel, you can sign up for that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. Hope you guys have a great Wednesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz.